Hey everyone, this is Angela Ciolana, and I am so excited to be bringing you this interview with Michael Puppos. He is works at a fairly new parish, I guess, new in terms of the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church.
Right.
Um, so I guess, Michael, you're probably better at introducing yourself. So I'll let you give a little, I guess, portrait of yourself to our audience.
Sure. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Michael Puppos, and I'm the pastoral associate for music and for liturgy at St. John the 23rd Parish in Perrysburg. But for any of you that know how church world works, when you work at a parish, you wear many hats. And I'm so proud to be at this parish. We opened 10 years ago, which is so hard to believe that we'll celebrate our 10th anniversary as a parish. At the time, I was still in college, and I received an email from the new pastor at the time saying, "Hey, we're opening a new church in Perrysburg." And I thought, Catholic churches just don't start. I mean, the last one in our diocese was in the 70s, and that was before I was even born. So it's been really exciting to see a parish start from absolutely nothing. I mean, we literally all had just our cars, and we actually celebrated Mass in the public high school for 3 years. As the diocese was searching for property, and we were raising the money to build a building. And actually, where my office is now in this building, it's called our Parish Life Center. So we don't have a permanent worship space yet. Our permanent church building, we hope to break ground on that in a couple of years. But we're in a building that we use for Mass, we use for parish social functions, religious education, blood drives. We're very good at moving chairs at this parish. We're very nomadic people.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you wear many hats. So I know those of us who work in parish or ministry in the church, we are very familiar with that.
Right.
So the reason that we're having this interview is because we're going to be talking about the parish communications. So how did you come about, doing both the communications as well as music and liturgy?
Well, it's really funny. When I was a little kid, I've always been kind of a computer kid. My older brothers, I'm the youngest of three boys. They're significantly older than I am, but I can remember my oldest brother Chris. He had a Commodore 64 in our basement. We had this long cord that would extend from like a closet in the basement to the computer, and that was the modem. And at the time, I think the only thing that we could access was the database at the library. But that was really cool because we could and things like that. So I've always had a love for technology, and of course, I've always had a love for the church. And I think when you bring the two together, especially in light of the call from John Paul II for the new evangelization, it makes perfect sense. So the other kind of more honest answer is that as the youngest person on staff, I got the default, hey, he's young, he can do computer stuff, he can make this work. So that's a lot of the reasons that I do it too. But we're a very young parish. Our median age is 33, and so we have so many young families, lots of high school students. We're about 8 miles away from Bowling Green State University, and so obviously there's a lot of college students in the area, and also people that are coming back, graduating from college, young adult population, things like that. So really for us, it's about getting the word out to people on as many platforms as we can so that they can stay connected to parish life.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that. And I know a lot of us can relate to kind of just jumping in and really, I know for me personally, when I came on to the apostolate that I work for, I had a certain kind of job description. And then because of my skills and my interests, that job description just kept growing and growing and growing. And I think it kind of, that happens to so many of us. So, so I guess when did it kind of, I mean, obviously when you guys were founded, like you said, you were preparing to build the new building and just get that parish really established. So when was it that you kind of started working on the communications per se, and how did that kind of start off?
Yeah, that was probably more, as I mentioned, when we opened, I was in college at the time. And so I was really just working part-time as the musician for the parish. So I would, direct a couple of rehearsals each week and then come in to play the weekend masses. That was while we were still at the high school. And then once I had graduated from college, Father Herb, our pastor, Father Herb, had asked me to come full-time and to not only develop the music program, but also kind of beef up our youth ministry program and then develop kind of a communication strategy for what we're doing. We had a website, but it wasn't great. And, I think the mid to late 2000s was still kind of a transitional time as far as like web design and things. You had very hit or miss websites, and most Catholic churches have miss websites. So we wanted to make sure that ours would be a hit, so that people could easily and readily find information about the parish that is most importantly up to date with what's actually happening here.
Well, and anybody who visits the website can see that you guys really put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into planning the website, because it is laid out very, very well. I have to say congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, we worked with actually a company helped us to do that. I can't take all of the credit myself. I don't do coding or HTML or anything like that. My famous line around here is I just play the piano. So I'm not afraid to ask for help from people that are professionals in their fields to get the job done. But actually, the website that you see now, the one that's currently up, we just launched a little over a year ago when Pope John the 23rd was canonized as saint. So we kind of did a rebrand, a new parish, a new name, and we did a rebrand of the website. Obviously, we had to redo all of our logos and branding for everything else. So it just kind of worked. But since the parish has started, this is actually our fourth design on the website, three of which I did, and then the first one when the parish first opened.
Wow, that's a great insight. So about 2 years for every kind of edition of the website, pretty much.
Yeah, I would say 2 to 3, maybe sometimes 4 years. Part of I'm a person that tends to like change and keeping things kind of fresh. I
Mm,
know there also has to be the balance that people get used to where they find information, and so when you change a website on people, they sometimes can be frustrated because I used to know where this was, but now I can't find it. So I think the key with when you change the design, it doesn't mean you have to change how people navigate.
right,
You can put a new outfit on and still be the same person.
right.
So I think we kept a lot of the navigation the same, the general categories of where things can be found, but obviously adding new features and content as we go.
So the company that you guys worked with, was that a secular company, or was that kind of somebody that you knew from the community, or how did that come about?
No, I really do love looking at church websites. I just love to see what other people have. And I came across this website one day, and when I looked at it, I thought this cannot be a Catholic church website. I mean, it was so, and I hate to say that, but I did a double take because it was so beautifully designed. And I looked, you can go down to the bottom of the page then to see who developed the site for them, and it was a company called Sheepish Designs. And they also go by another name, Blend 5. And they are religiously affiliated. So they do work with ministries, not necessarily just Catholic. They work with all denominations of churches. But they're very good at helping you step away from, I just want a really good looking website, and say, what's the heart of my mission in my presence online? And defining that first, because it's very easy to say, well, we need to get our bulletin up, and we need to get information about First Communion classes up, and a picture of the pastor. But I think churches first have to decide, what's the purpose of our mission online. Like when somebody's coming to our website, what are they trying to find? Obviously, one of the top things people are looking for are, what time does this parish celebrate Mass on Sundays? So you want that to be prominent. But I think churches also want to figure out, what else are people looking for.
Right. And definitely that mission is so constant throughout the website. And that's one of the things that I love about it. We actually had for this interview some questions submitted through the Facebook group, tech support for churches.
Oh,
And
cool.
one of the questions was from seminarian Tom. And he wanted to know if you guys had kind of a strategy for your communication. So would you say that working with Blend 5, working with them, did that really kind of help you guys start off with a strategy, or do you think you had something before that that kind of meeting?
We've always had a strategy as far as we want to be able to connect with people. And
Sure.
there's two ways that we want to be able to do that. First and foremost is informational. So I want to find out information about this parish. When is the high school youth group meeting? I want to have my child baptized. How do I get that taken care of? I want to register for the parish. Where can I find information about that? Or I want to find contact information for somebody that's on the pastoral team. So that's obviously one key piece. But the other thing that as churches, I think sometimes we forget is that we're just not an information database. We're a ministry. And so we have to be able to say the information that we have is the result of this action. Baptism isn't an information, it's a sacrament. And so we actually developed a mobile app for our parish. I think we're coming up on, it'll be 2 years this fall, either 2 or 3 years. I can't remember, to be honest. And when we were developing that, I looked at a lot of apps that churches had, either Catholic churches, there were very few at the time, and non-Catholic churches. And I was finding a lot of them that had the apps were just reiterations of the information on their website. And I kept thinking, well, why bother to develop an app, pay for the monthly hosting, advertise for people to download it, when they can just go to your website and get the same information in a mobile format,
Right.
And so that's when we kind of distinguished that the website for the parish is going to be informational primarily, but the app is going to be formational. And
Okay.
so having content in it, like original podcasts and blogs from the pastoral team, we live stream all of our masses each weekend. So you can catch the live stream in the app. Obviously, that's available on the website too. The app is a really easy way to just access the bulletin to see what programs and events are going on in the parish. And then we have different sections in it. We have a going deeper section where we've linked to, just different scripture reflections that people can find online. Obviously, a really easy link is the USCCB website for the daily mass readings, which I know people use all the time. And Catholics, we that work in the parish, we know where a lot of these websites and resources are, but I would bet many of the average people in our pews don't know that. Well, one, they probably don't know what USCCB stands for, much less that there's a website, and on that website they can find the daily mass readings. But if they're parishioners at St. John the 23rd Parish and they have the app, all they have to do is launch it, and it's there. And it was a good discussion with our staff, because I took this idea to the pastor and I said, I think we need to have a mobile app. I said, this is the way everybody is communicating. This is the way that we're staying connected. Think about the number of apps that we have either on our phones or our tablets. But the other thing I said was, think about how many apps you download once and then you never look at it again. And I don't want that to become what people do for our app. So it's about keeping the content fresh in there as well.
Would you say that having a young congregation makes it easier for your pastor to kind of take on these sort of projects, like developing an app for the parish, or do you think it's kind of a balance of both him being really open to it and the needs of the congregation?
I think it's both. Our pastor is not a micromanager. He's very good at listening to what we as the pastoral team bring to the table. And, he has many, many talents, but developing technological advances is not one of them, So I think that's one of the things. He's also tone deaf, so that's why I have good job security. I hope he never
Gotcha.
watches.
Disclaimer.
Yeah. So, I think he appreciates that, and he values our opinions. And I think that's what works really well in our parish, is that we really are a team of people working together to further this community, not just someone working under a pastor.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I know you mentioned the information side of it, and that is something that is, really critical to anybody who works in a parish. So we had a couple questions on that from the Tech Support for Churches group.
Sure.
Mark wanted to know, how do you guys decide which announcements get higher priority, like higher visibility on the website or the bulletin?
Oh, that's a great question. On the website, I can answer that. Generally, if there's a major parish event that would affect a large group of parishioners, that will get major headlines on the homepage. Up until recently, we were doing a weekly video announcement called Update 23, and we were producing it weekly and then sending it out via email, social media, and on the website. And that would be about a 3-minute video that just incorporates, hey, here are the highlights happening at the parish this week. And that's a lot of the time where I would kind of focus in on, okay, these are the key events. And I would try to do something for all age groups. So something for the youth, something for those that are retired, something for the young adults, something that would hopefully draw each group of people in. About midwinter, I took a little break from producing that video. I'm hoping to return to it in the fall. The main reason is because we were only doing it on social media and on the website. There may have been 50 to 100 people watching it a week, and it was about a 3-hour between filming, editing, and publishing. It was a major commitment each week, and my hope is that eventually we'll be able to use these video announcements within our weekend liturgies at Mass, because we have screens here. So, we can show promotional videos for things, and we use them for music and things like that. So, a nice little video during the announcements at Mass. And that gives good personal witness too. It's one thing to hear, whoever's giving the announcements, oh, we're having a women's faith sharing group. You should come this weekend because Jesus desires to grow closer to you, And,
Right.
and what happens a lot when people hear those things at church, myself included, or we even read it in the bulletin, because we're so busy, we think, well, that's for everybody else, but I don't have time for it. But if we can show them, a woman that has joined this group and has been touched by the process of being a part of it, and share just a little bit of her witness in 30 to 60 seconds. It's all about, being brief and getting it's what I call the whole Twitter concept. If you can't say it in a short amount of time, it's not worth saying. And I think that helps to move people's hearts a little bit more, that personal witness.
Awesome. Well, another question that we had on the information side was from Holly, and she kind of was looking at the bulletin and how the bulletin and the website are a little bit different in terms of design. And so she was wondering, how do you guys, is that an area that you guys want to improve in, or how can you kind of balance, where is the balance between the traditional media and the new media, and how do you kind of work on bringing those together?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, and what a great insight on Holly's part, because I agree with her totally. The only part of the bulletin that I touch is the cover. And that was changed. The cover was changed, I would say, right when we rebranded for the canonization of John the 23rd, because we had, like so many church bulletins, a cover that had way too many words on it that no one wanted to read. And ours specifically had a really awkward picture of like this floating head of St. John the 23rd, like hanging out there. And I said, this is not inspiring. It's almost kind of creepy. And I know a lot of other bulletins have pictures of the inside of their churches, which is great. We have such beautiful churches in our Catholic Church around the world, and I love looking at them. But to me, an empty building doesn't convey the warmth and the hospitality that our church wants to convey to people that are visiting for the first time. Sure. For instance, I remember there was, in our own diocese, there was this commercial that they said, Catholics, come home for Christmas this year. And it panned to this glorious shot, multiple shots of our cathedral here in the diocese. And we have a beautiful cathedral. It's called Rosary Cathedral. But it was totally empty. And you know how massive cathedrals are? Lots of stone, lots of cold surfaces. It was not warm. It was not inviting. I thought, well, that's great. Come home to an empty church. Nobody's here. And so we made a very deliberate attempt on our bulletin that we include pictures of people.
Hmm.
So it has the very basic necessity on the cover. What's our phone number, our website, our mass times, obviously our church logo, and probably the address if I remember correctly. And then on a monthly basis, if not sooner, we rotate pictures just of different parish events, familiar faces, things that are going on. It helps to keep it fresh. It gives people like to see it. It kind of is like, oh, who's in the bulletin cover this week? Or some people, I don't usually ask permission, so then they come up and they say, you owe me, you put me on the bulletin cover. But in terms of the inside of it, yeah, I would agree with you. It is a lot of text. I would love to revamp it. Bulletins are really time consuming on part of the whole staff to write them, on part of the one staff member that edits it and puts it together each week. But I think it's also about how you do it. So we kind of have a rule of thumb here, like you could not publish the same article week after week, which is really easy to do. It's really easy to hit copy and paste and advertise a concert that we're doing. But people are just going to ignore it when they see it a second or a third or a fourth time. And so we kind of challenge ourselves here, rewrite it, say the same thing, but in a different way that will entice people to read it again. And I would love to redesign the inside. I think that's great insight. So maybe that's something that we could look to do in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely, part of the reason I do my site and the reason we have the tech support for churches group and so many other things that are happening in the church is because we all realize that we need to learn from each other. And that's one of the things that I love about, just talking with others who work in churches and ministry, because we can get so many great insights from each other.
Oh, so I was just I was at CNMC last weekend, the Catholic New Media Conference.
Yeah.
And Patrick Padley did a great breakout session on marketing for parishes. And he showed his church bulletin cover, the parish that he goes to. I have never seen so much text on one page in my life. It's like a magnifying glass to read it. And he was saying, and I love this, he was saying, what if we designed our church bulletin covers like magazine covers? Like, hey, this week at the parish, or hey, parish festival on page 10, check out the information. Like something that really entices people. There's kind of the old joke, like if you want somebody to know what you're doing, don't put it in the bulletin because nobody reads it anyway. So it's about getting that information out there in different ways. And that was one of the reasons we created Update 23, because I know personally I don't read the whole bulletin, and I work here. Again, don't tell that to my pastor. But I know people in my generation will watch a 2 or 3 minute video, and I know that when I go to a website, the first thing I look for is a video to explain to me what that company or that institution or organization does and the information that I can find about them. So right. that was one of the reasons that we did it. And at CNMC, Pat Padley also talked about, doing an email format of the bulletin, not just making a PDF file of your bulletin and attaching it. But here are the highlights in the bulletin this week in a really nice newsletter format, maybe through MailChimp or something like that, where people that are used to getting their news electronically might be able to receive it a little more readily than, our bulletin's 12 pages each week. Who has time to read 12 pages?
Right. So, yeah, most people don't even read one page a week.
Right.
Yeah, that's great insight. And actually, I did a series on parishes that are designing their bulletins like that and doing the things that you were talking about, email and that type of thing. So I'll definitely include a link to that in the description box of this video.
Yeah, I'd love to check it out too.
Yeah. So you mentioned Catholics coming home and the kind of effort to bring people back to church. And we had another question from the tech support group, and Jason wanted to know, how have you guys personally seen what you guys are doing in kind of the marketing side of things, the communication side? Have you seen that bear fruit in bringing people back to church?
Yeah, we have. I think what's neat about our parish is that, especially not being in a formal church yet, it really relies on the church as people and not just a physical structure. And that's been our mantra since day one. Church is the people. The building comes next, And so we have been very careful not to get caught up in things that don't enhance us as a community, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
even as you come here, the building that we're in now is very simple in its design. And people walk in and they say, wait, this is a Catholic church? And I say, well, yes, it's a Catholic church because we celebrate Mass here and there's a lot of people that come. And the church building will come later down the road. But we find this to be a very comfortable place for people to kind of get their toes back into the faith. So maybe, I know a lot of parishes see parents that have a baby and that haven't been going to church but were raised Catholic, and they feel that they want to have the baby baptized, and so they kind of get reconnected to the church. People getting married, that's a lot of times where people see it. We find here that we have a lot of couples where one person is Catholic and the other is not. But our parish tends to be a very comfortable place for the whole family to come together and worship. And we really take pride in that because we do want everyone to feel welcome. Every parish sings all are welcome, but do we really, really preach that with our actions and not just a song that we sing?
And have you found, you mentioned the live stream of the services and the podcast as well. Of course, you're on Catholic SIP, and a lot of people are familiar with Catholic SIP. Mm-hmm. Have you found that people have made a connection with your parish because of the live stream or the podcast?
Yeah, I think it's neat because they can find us anywhere. And we were very, it was kind of like that balance of like, okay, we're going to be broadcasting all of our masses. This is not a substitute just to stay home in your pajamas instead of getting here on Sundays. But this is an opportunity for us to reach the homebound, those that are sick, those that can't get to Mass. Our diocese does a weekly television Mass, which is very nice, but it's not the same as still attending your own parish and seeing the people that you know each week and your pastor and the music that you're used to. So we've been very, very careful to make sure that we communicate to people that this is not a replacement, but this is to help us reach people that we couldn't. And actually, part of our property, we have a nursing home assisted living facility that some of the Sylvania Franciscan sisters developed, and it's such a great ministry that the people there can watch Mass here that can't get out of their rooms, and so they're still connected to us in a way. So that's really helpful too. And I think it's great. It's a great tool to say, hey, I go to this church, St. John the 23rd. We really love it. We'd really love for you to come sometime. By the way, if you want to check it out, you can go on our website. And it's not that we just stream the Masses live. We also archive them for a week. So after Mass is done, the archive posts, and then you can go back and watch Father's homily. We also provide video podcasts of the homily through the app and through the website. Maybe you just want to go back and listen to the scripture readings again and kind of meditate through those. Maybe there's a song that really touched you and you want to hear the song again. Maybe your kids were misbehaving and you want to go back and check to make sure that Sally really did punch Bobby first. I don't know, so, lots of useful tools for it. Just this week, my 2-month-old daughter was baptized, and right before we went up to the baptismal font in the middle of Mass, my 2-year-old, who was in the back of the church with her aunts, just trying to get some energy out, realized we were going up, and she ran up the center aisle during Mass, and I'm watching this unfold in front of me, and she's going, wait for me, I want to come too. And she gets the steps at the foot of where the sanctuary is, and she's like, because she's 2, like tripping up the steps because she's got shoes on and that she doesn't usually wear and a dress and all this. And what was really cool was everybody was talking about it. I mean, everybody was laughing. It was probably one of the most joy-filled moments in my time as a parent, because she was so excited about baptism. I kept thinking, man, I wish everybody got this excited about baptism. But was it even better when we went home after Mass that day and we had everybody at our house for a little lunch? We could pull up the video and watch it all over again. Sure enough, you see my little Audrey running up the steps. So it was really cool.
Awesome. Well, with that, I want to kind of conclude with just your personal encouragement, words of encouragement, and maybe advice or tips for people who are in a similar position as maybe you were 10 years ago, maybe with a new parish, maybe with a parish that wants to kind of revitalize. So what would you kind of say to those folks?
I would say don't be afraid to give it a try. Even if it's uncomfortable, I think that the church needs you to give it the effort, and you'll see that it will become easier as you get used to it. And maybe technology isn't your forte. but I know there's somebody in your parish that it is their forte, and use them. Use volunteers. Get people involved. The worst mentality that we can create at a parish is that the staff does everything and everybody else just comes for mass on Sunday and gives their envelope. Like, we need to be working together as a community. I always say we're fortunate enough at our parish that we have many full-time staff members that are members of this community that get to focus on this church. But we need everybody to focus on this church. So don't be afraid to talk to volunteers. Get on social media if your pastor approves of that. It's a great way to get connected with people during the week. We find, people love just to see pictures of events, or I'll put up, some little thought from Father Herb's homily over the weekend, just as like to get that out there. And I think it's about the intentionality of what you do too, which I really want to improve on, like asking the question, what do we want people to take away from coming to Mass this week? If we had to come up with the focal point of the week, what do we want people to take away? Besides obviously the Eucharist, and then working from there. And I've seen a lot of parishes do different things. I by no means think we do it perfectly, and there are lots of ways I want to improve. But I would say get started somewhere. Don't just wait to say, "Well, we're going to do it. We're going to do it," because if you don't start, it's never going to happen. And keep it up to date. That would be the key. Keep it up to date. Every week you have to check what you have published to make sure it's up to date.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Michael, for joining me for this interview, this little chat.
My pleasure. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah. And where can people find out more about you guys?
Our website is stjohn23.org. And so that's our website. And from there, you can find links for all of our social media, you can download our app, a link to download our app on any of your mobile devices. The website's the best place to go. And if you're in the Toledo, Ohio area and you want to stop by for a Sunday Mass, we'd love to see you sometime. Come and pray with us. Come and celebrate.
Awesome. Well, thanks. And to everybody watching and listening, God bless. And stay tuned to Inspired Angela for more interviews with awesome people like Michael.